Uncles. I'm Uncle Stephen.
And I'm Uncle Rich.
So, Uncle Rich, what question have we got for us this week or whatever? Yes.
Oh, so for this session, it is a big one. So I'll read it out. So I work in incident response. I'm absolutely burnt out. Have lost all desire to keep abreast of the latest security knowledge, and I just don't care about cyber anymore. I'm incredibly tempted to just quit and go and do training and awareness or GRC, something non-technical that requires less research investment. The thing that's stopping me is that I'm a woman, and it's such a cliche that women in cyber aren't technical, and I don't want to add to those appalling stats, but I'm just so tired of this shit. It's so hard, and I can't be bothered. From burnt out Becky.
Oh, well, ouch. Doesn't sound like Becky's having a lot of fun, does it?
No, it really doesn't. And I'd be interested to know how long it's not been fun for.
I think, in my experience, people tend to only actually complain when they've got to the point where it's almost impossible to fix.
Yeah. In my experience, that's been true. I think that's fair to say. And
Um,
I
mm,
think it's difficult because obviously if you are an incident responder, like Becky here is,
yeah,
then you're constantly fighting fires. And if you're not fighting fires in high stress environments and situations, then you're writing up paperwork. And that's tough. It's a tough gig.
it is. It is. I mean, what we don't know is whether Becky is working within an organisation in an IR role within the cyber team, or whether Becky's working for a MSSP or a specialist DFIR type organisation. Um,
Yeah.
because looking at it from the point of view of providing IR as a service, I think that's one of the most exciting things you can do. I think most people who are analysts would aspire to be incident responders. Every day will be a potentially new and interesting customer with a new variation of something that you've probably already seen before and know how to deal with. So I don't feel like it should be hugely stressful per se.
No, and I was just thinking about that in house versus MSSP sort of element to it. If I mean, I would struggle to see somebody in house, no matter the size of the organisation, having that many incidents to deal with to the
Yeah,
point
I
where
think
it gets out. You know,
there are sort of very large. Well, I've come across internal IR teams, but only in sort of global finance organisations. Very large global organisations will probably run their own incident response, at least maybe first line, and then back off to one of the major DFIR contracts for sort of external support. But yeah, I think partly though this sort of implies to me that the culture in the organisation is wrong. I mean, if that is down to the person, it is generally down to them not being well managed. So either they don't have enough autonomy over what they're doing, or they're literally given too much stuff, micromanaged, unrealistic expectations, whatever it may be. But it's a general issue, as well as the specific issue about there being a lot of research you need to do if you're in IR. But as a general issue, if people are getting burnt out, there's something wrong with the way that the team is being run.
yeah, absolutely. It does scream management issues to me because ideally management would spot that Becky here is getting into that sort of state where they're approaching burnout and then take steps to sort it.
Yeah, you definitely want that. I mean, I'm sure you'll agree with me, Rich, that it is much. It is both more efficient and more efficacious to fix something which is going slightly off the rails than it is to let it go off the rails and then try to put it back right again later. So basically, if you're talking about people that are considering quitting, if they quit, you've got an uphill struggle to bring in somebody else generally that you can get to that level. No matter how easy you think it is to bring somebody in to do things, there'll be a whole load of stuff that you do in your organization, which is the way that quality is valued or measured or whatever it will be. There's a whole load of specific stuff. Nobody hits the ground in these sorts of roles and is 100% productive from day one. So you're going to lose some productivity. It's going to take management and other time to get somebody working in the right way, in the right team, doing stuff. Whereas if you can actually avoid somebody wanting to leave in the first place, then that would be a good thing. But the other side of that is people come, people go. People make decisions about things that, for all sorts of reasons. I've had in the past, I think on one occasion, I inherited a large team of people who'd been promised all sorts of stuff by a string of managers that had basically just said stuff in order to shut people up. And I had a whole team of people that expected that you would get a promotion, a title promotion and a big pay rise every 12 months just because you sat on your ass. You turned up to work and sat on your ass for a year. And it came as quite a shock when I said, no, that isn't how this stuff is going to be. And I think 60% of them left, but it was the right 60% that left. Most of them weren't any happier in their next role, and some of them even came back later and said, actually, I made a mistake, can I come back? To which the answer was, sorry, I've already refilled your role. But there we go. That's just the nature of these things. It would be a shame if in this situation Becky is in that category, because good IR, I'm making the assumption she's good IR, but good IR people are it takes a while to get somebody into that role, and it's worth looking after the people that you've got that are in that role, because they're doing a very valuable job, be that internally in the organisation or as part of a service provider. And there's, I think, for somebody who can do IR, they're potentially adding less value by doing something like training and awareness or GRC, although those tend to be much lower stress jobs. I do agree.
Yeah, this is it. But also, I would guess, and I've not checked, but I would guess that a lot of GRC roles may not pay the same amount as somebody on the front lines of incident response. That's just my gut feeling. I've got no data to back that up.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually. I think I do often, when I see roles being advertised, I do sometimes question whether the organisation offering out the role has really thought about the value that role brings in compared to the salary. But that's it's difficult to know, and that varies from organisation to organisation. I mean, some organisations are much more on the policy and process side of things, and the others sort of understand the benefit of actually managing the technical security controls more. So it's also, if you are burnt out, I think probably salary is not going to be the main driver for the change in role.
True. Another thing to bear in mind, of course, is if you are burnt out, there's a really strong chance that you're not actually going to make the best decisions when it comes to sort of these large life sort of decisions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
One of the things about being burnt out is that your brain no longer functions in the way that you'd hope it would.
That is true.
I think, or I'd like to hope that most managers or management teams would agree with me in saying they don't want their staff to burn out. They don't want to push them to that point. So, I mean, I think Becky's first port of call is to sit down with her line manager and say, and say, look, I'm stressed. I'm getting burnt out. I need to avoid getting burnt out completely. These are the areas in my role. And Becky might not know exactly what the sources of stress are, but maybe she could delve into them with her line manager.
Yeah.
And try and pinpoint them a bit and work on either changing working patterns um,
Yeah, exactly.
or handing off elements of her workload to other people,
Yep.
something of that nature that might just give her some breathing room and avoid total burnout.
Yeah, I mean, she does mention in here that she's concerned about the amounts of research that she has to do to keep on top of things. Um, that at one level, that's true. I mean, I've said it before, but the last time I went out and did a quick Google check, if you are a purchaser of tools or services, there are like 2,000 plus in the cyber arena. Um, and actually, I realistically don't believe that any particular incident responder, analyst, guru, or anybody else is going to be absolutely on top of all 2,000 potential tools in the cyberspace, let alone all of the things that might be living at an OS level, or all the malware that might be floating around that you might come across as an incident responder. But the other side of that is, though, that if you look at something like MITRE ATT&CK framework, and you look at TTPs, the path from one side to the other side, there are literally thousands of potential paths through there. But at any one time, there are only 100 or so that will be in use, because most groups are kind of reusing whatever the vulnerabilities of the moment are, which leads to. So we know, for example, that most attacks start with phishing. Ransomware uses particular means to get installed, those sorts of things. So you don't have to become an expert in absolutely any and all possible scenarios, but understanding what are the current most likely scenarios is a good way to go, and that focuses the research down. The other side with research is that you can make it quite exciting. And if you've got a particular pet piece of tech that you like, instead of trying to keep on top of everything in the world, you could spend time actually deeply researching the thing that you're interested in. And you can raise your profile in the community very quickly if you start finding vulnerabilities within particular pieces of tooling. So you then build up a reputation of being a specialist in something, which can mean you don't get thrown into every generalist situation, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
try to make it more fun.
yeah, absolutely. And part of me kind of thinks that Becky might be delving too deeply on the research front, because you know
Mm,
the most common kinds of attacks all have a fairly familiar sort of pattern to them.
yeah,
Whether it's an email comes in via phishing, somebody clicked a link,
yeah,
or it's a DDoS attack, or whatever, or a piece of malware traversing your network.
yeah.
They all tend to follow the same core pattern. And uh, to me, a lot of incident response work is knowing those patterns, knowing where to look and how to look. But then a lot of it is around following best practices and a clear, defined set of steps.
Yeah.
And I think actually, if you're established in your role and you've been around the block a couple of times, a lot of this becomes second nature. And I think the reliance on research so heavily might not be such a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can work out. Frankly, you can work out on the fly using first principles. You
Yeah,
understand how stuff works. You understand a bit about the mind of the attacker. The likelihood that you're going to be, you're going to have at your fingertips, full information about all possible malware that you might ever come across is just like none of us are ever in that position. But once you get stuck into it, you know what you're looking for, because you kind of understand what the end game is and the ways in which the end game can be achieved. So you're right. You don't need to have defined everything before you can go in and defend against it. You just need to understand what it is that needs to be protected, who it is that might be trying to attack you, and how they might go about doing that.
yeah. I mean, I think the key word in IR is the word response.
Yeah,
You're responding to something that's happened, so you
yeah,
already have a starting point, and that is this thing happened.
Yeah, yeah,
uh, and then you're sort of collecting information around that and taking action based off of it.
yep. I think that's true. But a lot of what we're talking about here is relevant to not getting burnt out in the first place. But as Becky
Yes.
is saying here, what does she say? I just don't care about cyber anymore. Being a bit
Yeah.
brutal, maybe game's over. Maybe it is time to go and do something else.
Yeah, that's
Can
it.
can you come back from those situations? It's
I think
possible, but
I think you can.
I think it's rare. I think realistically, it's rare. I think when somebody is that pissed off, what might happen is a change of environment might reset things. So it may not be cyber that's actually the issue. It may be the way in which Becky is being expected to work, and the work she does is cyber. It's kind of like if you have got a disgruntled workforce, one of the things that they'll do is complain they're not paid enough. Well, they might not be being paid enough, but if you doubled their salary, and nothing else changed, you'd probably only keep them happy for 6 months or so, a year at the outside, and then their expectation is they're not paid enough, because it's actually an excuse for everything else that's not right. So, you know, um, yeah, there may be something in there, and yeah, there may be something in this that Becky just is feeling exhausted with dealing with, keeping on top of cyber.
Yeah, I mean,
But
is caring about? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
that's all right. No, go on, go on.
is caring about something a prerequisite to doing something well, to doing a job to a decent standard?
I would say no, but it helps.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
we can all do things that we're not interested in, and we can do them to an acceptable, if not good, level. Um, but it certainly helps if you enjoy it.
Yeah,
I'm for example, I am very competent at stacking dishes into the dishwasher. I can get them to the point where everything is going to go in dirty and come out clean, and it's all there are no things on top of things that don't get washed or whatever it might be. But I can't say I have passion about that. So you're right. Yes, you can do things that you don't care about or don't have passion for, and you can do them well. But it kind of helps if you enjoy it.
yeah. I mean, maybe one part of the answer for Becky is to sort of keep going, not necessarily in the same way that she is, but accept that right now she's not in love with it, and sort of almost disassociate herself. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here, but sort of disassociate her emotions from the role a
Mm.
bit and kind of go through the motions whilst simultaneously pinpointing the bits she doesn't like.
Yeah, I think if the situation is fixable, it's fixable only at a company level. It's not fixable
Yeah.
by Becky, other than potentially by changing role, and possibly looking to move to another IR role in another organisation might be a way forward. If fixing this particular role in this organisation isn't, going off to do something else entirely, I don't know. I mean, maybe that is the right thing. People do have changes of direction.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
know somebody who was very solid in uh, SOC, at sort of senior SOC level, that actually decided in the end that she wanted to go off and do training and awareness stuff, and she's extremely happy and doing an absolutely fantastic job in that. She was good in one role, she was good in another. She changed direction a bit within cyber because that actually suited what she wanted to do at that point. So you can do that, and it might be fulfilling, and it might work. I don't think there are any hard and fast rules rather.
No, I don't think so either. But it does concern me a bit that, and I'm quoting from Becky's question here. She says, the thing that is stopping me from moving to GRC or training and awareness is that I'm a woman, and it's such a cliche that women in cyber aren't technical. Um,
Um,
and
hmm.
I think that's quite a sad but potentially honest thing to say.
um, yeah, it sort of is, but I don't think that. Um, I think there's a limit to how much you can do for the when it comes down to it, you've got to be happy in what you're doing, and you've
Yeah.
got to feel fulfilled in what you're doing.
Until
And
there was
just
any cliche.
because there's a load of other people, there's a load of people on social media and whatever that are saying, look, women can only do non-technical stuff. Well, that's A, not true,
Hmm.
and B, but the other side of that is, well, if you want to be non-technical, be non-technical. There's nobody saying you have to be. I think the
Yeah.
issue is more where, certainly in my experience, worse a few years ago than now, where women did want to be working in technical roles. They would find it hard because there was an assumption that they wouldn't be as good as a man in that role. But I don't know. I think there's been a lot of movements in the last 5 or 10 years in that space. And that whilst yes, there's a gender difference, right? So it's not 50% of all technical cyber people are female, but that doesn't mean to say that they should be. Okay, not 50% of builders are female. Equally, doesn't mean that they should be. I think it just means that if you've got the aptitude and the desire to do a particular role, that your sex or gender shouldn't hold you back for any reason. Not that you have to hit a particular target of X number of this, that, or the other. I think that has been long proved to be a very foolish approach to dealing with some of these issues. So if Becky has done the technical, I should always be able to say, look, on my CV, I was technical. I've been technical. I've been very technical. In fact, I got so technical, I was an incident responder. But actually, felt like I'd done enough of that. I wanted to go off and do some work on training and awareness instead.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it was a man that had sent the question in, no, they wouldn't be concerned about any cliches around it. They would do what the hell they pleased, and I think Becky should do exactly
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, 100% behind Becky doing exactly what Becky wants in
Yes.
this space. Yeah, don't. So that's one that I wouldn't use as part of, or I would recommend that she doesn't use as part of her decision making process. If you're unhappy in your role, trying to fix gender imbalance issues is probably not the right thing to be worrying about at that time.
No, absolutely
we,
not.
we are going to get so slated.
Oh, I know.
Oh, there's an interesting comment from thank you, Raf, for around this. Raf says, I'd argue that workload alone will not cause burnout. So what are the underlying factors that contribute to this? Work environment, lack of appreciation, switching roles sounds like sound advice. And I think Raf, I would agree with that. People don't they do burn themselves out, but they rarely burn themselves out unless there's something external that is part of that. So if you are busily doing something that you enjoy, you'll do it until you don't want to do it anymore, and you never get to burnout. You only get to burnout where there's other stuff that is wrong. And if you there's motivation in the workplace is a very interesting topic in psychology. Um, the Hertzberg model, I think it's generally known as the two-factor model, but it's effectively a model of what motivates versus demotivates people. And the things which are actually motivating are not the things which you're sort of taught to focus on when you're being trained through middle management. They tend to be they're the things that good senior leaders have either innately picked up or they've gone off and researched some of this stuff, because focusing on the mechanical things as a manager doesn't get them beyond a particular point. But stuff like having um, having authority to do your role, so having um, clearly defined expectations of what the role should do, but then being allowed to go and deliver the role. So having both the responsibility for something, but then the authority to actually get it done. Recognition is also very important from a motivation perspective. So I think you're probably right, Raf. I suspect that, and these are management issues, right? These are things where the environment needs to be right in order for you to feel like you're supported. You've got autonomy. However, stuff like good team behaviours. You can have disagreements, but you can do disagree and commit. You know that if you put your hand up to a mistake, the first thing your team and your management is going to do is go, okay, well, how can we help to get you out of this hole? We'll worry about how you got in there later and work out how to avoid it again. That sort of stuff. It's surprisingly rare, but it's, and I'm sure everybody has got elements that they do well and elements that they do badly. But I get the kind of the underlying, so reading between the lines, the underlying issue here, I suspect, is cultural within Becky's organisation.
Yeah. And just for you sort of young tech founders out there, an air hockey table in a break room does not make for good culture. Just put it out there so it's clear for everyone.
Oh. Yeah, no, it's bean bags and what's it? Bean bag rooms, air hockey, scooters or bicycles to go around the office on. Yeah. All well and good. Nobody is going to stay at your company because of that stuff.
No, exactly. So
half of California is now dead set against us.
Absolutely. So Becky, if you are listening to this, book some holiday, take some time off. Absolutely. Try and switch off from it. Come back, speak to your manager, try and pinpoint what's going on in your role. And if all of the above doesn't work out in your favor, then I think it's time to start looking around.
Yeah. So either look for, if you really want to do a complete change, absolutely go for it.
Go for it.
If you don't, and actually after a little bit of a breather, you think, IR is something that you really like, well, look for an organisation which is good to work for, and take your skills there, because your skills are in demand, and there are organisations out there that will both employ you in interesting things and then give you a good environment to work in.
Good luck.
It doesn't have to be bad. Yeah, good luck. So I think that's well, we're out of time, and I think there's nothing more that we can do to help Becky under these circumstances. So thank you all if you've been tuning in and listening to this. Thank you for that. I hope you find these useful. If you've got any questions, do feel free to send them in. We're always interested to see what we can do to help, or in some cases not help, people who are challenged in the industry. So that's bye from